All right, everybody, good morning. We're down to our last real position analysis in this upcoming draft. This is the last position that we're evaluating in terms of just one-to-one. We need this, so get that. There's going to be one more series of videos, just a handful of them, where I talk about another angle in this draft before we actually get there. But this is the final position that I think is really worth discussing in terms of need. It's safety. And I'm going to go ahead and kind of group it together as like one position, strong safety, free safety, because it's sometimes really, really hard to tell who is going to be what when they get to the NFL anyway. And a lot of them are very flexible. A lot of them are going to be able to do both. So we're just talking about safety. And if you look at the team right now on the surface, you're like, we don't need to do nothing at safety. What are you talking about? And you're probably right, but it's a little more convoluted than that, isn't it? You've got Jamal Adams, big money. Quandre Diggs, big money. But both those guys can easily, well, not easily, but feasibly be moved on after this year. So Jamal Adams and Quandre Diggs might both be playing for other teams or not playing at all in 2024. So that's your two starters. Now there's Julian Love. Maybe we like him as a starting safety, but maybe we don't. Maybe we like him as somebody who plays a little bit of safety, a little bit of linebacker, a little bit of slot corner, and we would need another true starting safety. Maybe we like Kobe Bryant as a safety, but maybe we don't. Maybe we like Trey Brown as a safety, maybe we don't. Maybe we like Joey Blunt. Maybe we think he has potential, but maybe we don't. So with Ryan Neal gone, I feel like the door has been opened a little bit for us to address safety in the upcoming draft, because it's possible for big turnover, by the way. Julian Love is easily released next year if we decide we want to go that way. We already know about Diggs and Jamal being releasable next year, but don't forget about Julian Love either. And it just really, without being a fly on the wall, it's hard to know how we look at these players. Do we look at Trey Brown as being a future safety? Do we look at Kobe Bryant as being a future safety? I think it's all on the table, but it's really hard for us to know. So I'm going to move forward, assuming that the team would at least consider drafting a safety. Also, we've looked at quite a few safeties during the pre-draft process with their top 30 visits. So that tells me that they're thinking about taking a safety at some point. Maybe not super early, but at some point, they're probably going to kick the tires on a safety. That means we should definitely take the time to look at them. And let's understand that some of these guys are very flexible. They can line up all over the place. They can play multiple positions, and it's possible we get our money's worth that way. All right, so this first guy, this is the superstar of this class. This is the best safety in this class pretty much universally. It's Brian Branch of the Alabama Crimson Tide. This guy is really, really good, really, really fun, and there's no doubt that he deserves to go in the first round, I believe. He will, I would say at least he has a good chance of being there at 20, and that's going to be a decision we have to make. And I understand that people are not going to really get enthused about dumping a high value pick into a safety, but I'm going to say it right now. If you're being objective, this guy is almost certainly worth it. 21 years old, 6 feet tall, 190 pounds, decent size, 30 and 3/4 inch arms, 9.5 inch hands. His testing was not the greatest, admittedly. He was a little bit slow, 4.58, 1.56 10-yard split, 34.5 inch vert, 10-foot 5 inch broad, 14 BP reps. It's not, you're not super excited yet, right? You look at those numbers and you go, oh, that guy, he's not that athletic. He's not that explosive. Hold on. All my big boards had him in the first, except for ESPN. The aggregate has him 24th. So he's going to be among the BPAs when you get there at 20. He is, if he's still there. So you're going to have to make a decision here. Last year for Alabama in 13 games, he gave you 90 tackles constantly around the ball, 14 for loss. A safety, and I know he's playing other positions too, but a quote-unquote safety giving you 14 tackles for loss in a 13-game season is off the charts. 3 sacks, 2 interceptions, 7 passes defensed, really good PFF coverage grade, 86.4. The year before, not nearly as good, but still 9 passes defensed in 13 games, 55 tackles. So he came along very quickly from 2021 to 2022, became a really, really good safety. What I can say about him, Look, he might be a strong safety or a free safety in the NFL. He's got ultimate versatility for both safety spots. Remember, that is a big deal. In this defense, in the Vic Fangio defense, you want safeties that can do both. They can play up and they can play back. So Brian Branch brings ultimate versatility to the table. He can do nickel corner stuff. He lined up at nickel corner for the Crimson Tide a good amount. Looked pretty good, at least in zone. He can do linebacker reps. He even lined up at edge sometimes. So you're getting him to be Jamal Adams. You're getting him to play many different roles on your defense. I think he's a really smart football player. He understands things like footwork and technique. He understands zone concepts. He understands things like landmarks in zone. He's phenomenal coming up in run support. He is somebody who you can count on to be constantly around the ball on running plays. Very high motor on this guy. He's got a nose for the football, as they like to say. He's a really great tackler as well. He's got the size to be a good tackler. He's not one of these 5'9" safeties that just can't tackle that well. He's a very violent hitter. And you let him play zone, he's going to be great jumping routes. He's really good at reading routes, knowing when to jump, knowing when to go, and getting to the ball in time. Now, the shortcomings with him, I think, would be his lackluster speed mostly isn't a problem, but it does show up when he's in man coverage from the slot. If you try to put him man-to-man from the slot, you're going to get problems because he's not going to be able to keep up that well with the faster slot receivers. So that's not a big deal here. The big deal here would be that he didn't really take the ball that way that much. He only had 2 interceptions last year, none the year before. So the ball production is a little disappointing. Even though he made a lot of plays on the ball, he got his hands on the ball a lot, just didn't take it away as much as you might prefer. So he is the best safety in this class by far. In the context of playing for the Seahawks, he has very few meaningful problems. Even if he does play slot corner a little bit for us, he'll be doing a lot of zone. So in the immediate, he'll probably be one of our, jackrabbits. He'll probably be somebody who plays a little bit of slot, a little bit of safety, a little bit of linebacker, a little bit of edge, and he'll provide good value in that role. However, in the future, he can become your full-time starting safety who can line up in different places on third down. So put all that together, I think he's worth it at 20. I'm not saying he's the best pick at 20, but Brian Branch at 20 is good value, and I definitely wouldn't have an issue with it. So it would make some people unhappy, I think. I get it. But I would take Brian Branch at 20 and feel like I got my money's worth. Next up, this is a pretty big drop-off to the next safety on the big boards right now. It's Antonio Johnson of Texas A&M. Another 21-year-old, 6'2", a little bit bigger, 198 pounds, 32 and 13 and 1/8 inch arms, 9 and 3/4 inch hands. So he's got size. He's a good amount bigger than Brian Branch. Also tested a little bit better, 4.52 40, 1.57 10-yard split. He wasn't explosive, though. I will say that. And 8 bench press reps also. A lot of big boards have him in the 5th. One had him in the the 2nd. One had him in the 3rd. The aggregate has him in the late 2nd. Last year, he missed a few games, but still gave you 71 tackles in 9 games, 5 for loss, a sack, pass defense, and 3 forced fumbles, and a good PFF coverage grade, almost 80. Year before, he gave you the full season, 8.5 tackles for loss on 80 tackles, a sack, a pick, 5 passes defensed. So this guy, I do think he's a pretty big step down from Branch. He is flexible like Branch. He does offer that flexibility to be a slot corner, a safety, and a linebacker. He is a hard hitter. He's smart and sharp in his decisions. He understands to pass players off. He understands when to go. He's a smart decision maker, and his fundamentals, like his footwork in coverage and the way he transitions are really good. Overall, I think his fundamentals are solid. He's an excellent tackler. He uses that size very well. He's really good in zone defense, which is obviously what we would prioritize. And he's a disruptive player at the point of catch, but very little ball production. We're talking about 6 passes defensed in his last 21 games played. That's a little bit suspicious for a safety who's supposed to be worth a day 2 pick, an early half day 2 pick even. His testing was not very good. I mean, maybe it was a tiny bit better than Branch's, but not explosive at all. He's not very fluid with his movement, unfortunately. There's some people don't really know what he's going to be able to translate to the NFL. Like, yes, in college he played slot. Is he going to be able to do it in the NFL? He's a little bit big and an awkward mover. That might not work in the NFL. Is he going to be able to play safety in the... It's hard to know exactly what's going to translate. I don't look at him the same way I look at Brian Branch. So he's kind of an odd player. He's a little too... He's got a weird frame. He's got, those long legs that make it hard for him to move well in short areas. He's got great technique, but it feels like the talent is just not there. So I don't want to spend a day 2 pick on him. I don't think I'd take him even in the 3rd round. He gets to day 3, round 4. Okay, now you're talking about something that I might be intrigued by. But I'm definitely not doing it in round 2, and honestly, round 3, I feel like I can spend my resources better. Okay, we got one more guy for this video. It's Sidney Brown of Illinois. 23 years old. This is a smaller guy. This is more ET size. Got a lot of weight to him, though. 5'10", 211 pounds, which is not the build you typically see. 31.5-inch arms, 10.25-inch hands. Tested fairly well, 4'4", 740, 1.5, 110 yard split. It was mostly his explosiveness that excelled. 40.5-inch vert, 10-foot, 10-inch broad, 23 bench press reps. So he tested quite well, probably better than our first 2 guys, admittedly. And the big boards, they pretty much mostly have him in the 3rd. Some have him in the 2nd. The aggregate has him in the mid-3rd area. I think that's a pretty reasonable expectation. He's given 2 years of good production for that Illinois defense, 24 games, 140 tackles, 5 for loss. Had 6 interceptions last year in 12 games, so he really transformed into a ball hawk who takes it away, and had an almost 90 PFF grade in coverage, so big steps forward for him in 2022. His short area quickness and change of direction skills are top-notch. He's really good at shadowing players, really good at moving smoothly and quickly around the field. He's got great instincts as well, which is why he found himself taking the ball away so much last year. I like his safety instincts. He should be good in the slot as well at the NFL level. He's got the short area quickness and change of direction for that. The ball hawking stuff in 2022 really stands out to me. I like the fact that he actually had 6 interceptions in 12 games. Could do a little bit of linebacker stuff on some downs, although it's a little bit weird, right? Like, he's thickly built, but he's also short. So in certain situations, sure. He's a really good athlete in terms of his explosiveness as well, so there's probably upside here. He's a hard hitter, smart defender who reacts very quickly to what's going on in front of him. He's versatile as well. I think he'll be able to do free safety and maybe some strong safety stuff. I don't love him as a strong safety because of his size, but pretty good. The issue with Sidney Brown is that he's not a very good tackler, and that's going to be really hard for him to do anything about because he is on the undersized side. I mean, he's like I said, he's got weight to him, but 5'10" and 31.5-inch arms, a little bit tough for him to overcome that. His size will present some issues against bigger, receivers, not defenders. That's a typo. Let me just take care of that now. And it's going to be hard for him to do anything about that stuff because he is just naturally a little bit short-armed and a little bit small. But I think there's a lot of positives here. The only question is, do you think the positives are worth the negative of him not maybe being a mediocre tackler? He's got incredible athletic ability. He takes the ball away. He's smart. Are you willing to put up with the fact that your starting safety may be a mediocre tackler? I would take him in the 3rd round. I think the juice is worth the squeeze here. I would take Sidney Brown in the 3rd, make him one of my starting safeties, and understand that he's going to do enough stuff that I like to make up for the stuff that I don't like, which is mostly just tackling. I mean, Quandre Diggs was a pretty miserable tackler for most of last year, and I still think he was a plus player for us. He still provided value for the Seahawks. And at the end of the day, you need to keep things clean up front so your safeties aren't the one who have to make a bunch of big tackles. Okay, so those are the top safeties, or at least 3 of the top safeties in this draft. We're going to do a few more later today, and then we're going to look at some sleepers later on who might be more interesting to some people. But, yeah, let me know what you think of those guys. Maybe the top 3 safeties in this draft. We'll see. More coming later. Go Hawks. We are near the end of the draft evaluations, people. Very close to the end.